Trump's tariff tantrums. How his policies are hiking prices for American consumers.
Donald Trump is making headlines for boasting about the rising costs that American consumers are facing. In a recent episode of All In with Chris Hayes, aired on July 30th, the host discussed a striking social media post from Trump, where he emphatically declared, "The August 1st deadline is the August 1st deadline. It stands strong and will not be extended. A big day for America." This proclamation was made on Truth Social, and it set the stage for a series of developments that would impact everyday Americans. Currently, consumers are already feeling the pinch, with prices for essential items like ground beef, coffee, bacon, and bananas on the rise. Just a day after his bold statement, Trump followed up with another post announcing a 90-day extension for a trade deal deadline between the US and Mexico. As someone who closely monitors and reports on the news, I must admit that keeping track of Trump's tariffs has become quite a challenge.
The reason for this confusion stems from the erratic and often contradictory nature of his trade policies over the past few months. Do you recall the infamous Liberation Day? It was a chaotic event held in the Rose Garden, complete with prop tariff boards that made little sense. The administration proposed a 10% tariff on penguins inhabiting uninhabited islands and another 10% on an island group where the only residents were U.S. military personnel. Additionally, a staggering 47% tax was placed on Madagascar, which is our primary source for vanilla, a common grocery item. The absurdity of these tariffs led to a swift market downturn the following day, prompting Trump to backtrack and suspend nearly all the tariffs he had announced, except for those targeting China. He believed that China had retaliated, leading him to escalate tariffs on Chinese goods to an unprecedented 125%, igniting a significant trade war with the world's second-largest economy. Not long after, there was a noticeable drop in container ships arriving from China at U.S. ports, which sent Trump and his team into a panic over potential shortages on store shelves. In response, Trump once again called for a truce. Throughout this tumultuous period, Wall Street began to refer to Trump's trade strategy with the acronym TACO, which stands for Trump Always Chickens Out. Investors seemed to conclude that the president lacked the resolve to follow through on his trade threats, leading them to largely disregard the ongoing back and forth throughout the summer. However, beneath this chaotic surface, the reality is that American consumers are indeed paying the price. We are witnessing an increase in the costs of everyday goods, with more companies announcing price hikes on items like laundry detergent and sneakers. Ironically, one of Trump's primary campaign promises was to lower prices for consumers. Yet, just over 6 months into his second term, he's achieved the opposite effect and is even boasting about it, claiming that his administration has generated $150 billion in tariffs, costs ultimately borne by American businesses and consumers. This situation raises important questions. How do you feel about the impact of these tariffs on your daily life? Are you surprised that the very policies intended to protect American interests are leading to higher prices? Join the conversation and share your thoughts. Trump's tariff bombshell. Global markets rattled. Jobs growth stalls. Imagine waking up to a world where the rules of global trade have been turned upside down and the consequences are only just beginning to unfold. This is the reality we're facing today, as President Donald Trump's new tariff policy sends shockwaves through markets and economies around the globe. But here's where it gets even more complicated. The latest jobs report reveals a staggering slowdown in U.S. job growth, with a mere 73,000 jobs added in July, and massive revisions to previous months' totals. The question on everyone's mind is, what does this mean for the future of global trade, and how will it impact our daily lives? To understand the implications, let's break down the key points of Trump's new tariff policy and the potential consequences for consumers, businesses, and the economy as a whole. The new tariffs, which affect virtually every nation, mark a significant shift away from decades of free trade and towards a more protectionist era.
The tariffs range from 10% to 41%, with some countries facing much higher rates than others. For instance, Syria is facing a whopping 41% tariff rate, while Myanmar and Laos are bracing for 40% tariffs. On the other hand, countries like Canada will see their tariffs rise to 35%. But what about the impact on consumers? The tariffs are likely to drive up prices for imported goods, making them more expensive for American consumers. Electronics, clothing, and footwear are just a few examples of the products that will be affected. However, it's worth noting that businesses often absorb some of the costs, so the impact on consumers may be gradual. The U.S. job market has also taken a hit, with the latest report revealing a sharp slowdown in job growth. The black unemployment rate has risen to 7.2%, the highest level since October 2021, which is a concerning sign for the overall economy. Economists are worried that this trend could be a harbinger of bad news to come. The market reaction has been intense, with stocks plummeting and the Dow dropping over 600 points. The VIX, also known as the fear gauge, has jumped 22%, indicating a high level of volatility. Treasury yields have fallen and the US dollar has dropped as investors seek safe havens. As we navigate this complex and rapidly changing landscape, it's essential to consider the potential consequences of Trump's tariff policy. Will it lead to a trade war? Or will it spark a new era of economic growth? The answer remains to be seen, but one thing is certain. The world of global trade will never be the same again. And this is the part most people miss. The impact of these tariffs will be felt far beyond the US borders, affecting economies and businesses around the globe. So what do you think? Do you agree with Trump's tariff policy, or do you think it's a recipe for disaster? Share your thoughts in the comments below. As the situation continues to unfold, one thing is clear. The future of global trade is uncertain, and the consequences of these tariffs will be far-reaching. The question is, are we ready for what's to come? Trump's tariffs impact on US growth and inflation. The tariffs imposed by President Donald Trump are the highest we've seen since World War II, and they are poised to have significant repercussions on both the US economy and the global market. According to insights from Bloomberg Economics, these reciprocal tariffs are expected to hinder economic growth, while simultaneously driving up prices for consumers. On Friday, the administration announced a range of tariffs that vary from 10% to a staggering 41%. This dramatic increase will elevate the average tariff rate in the United States from a mere 2.3% in 2024 to an alarming 15.2%. Maeva Cousin, the chief trade economist at Bloomberg Economics, has provided this analysis, highlighting the potential economic strain these tariffs could impose. But here's where it gets controversial. While some argue that these tariffs are necessary to protect American jobs and industries, as we navigate this complex issue, it's essential to consider the broader implications. How will these tariffs affect everyday Americans? Will they lead to higher prices on goods and services? And what about the global economy? How will other countries respond? This situation raises many questions, and we want to hear your thoughts. Do you agree with the tariffs, or do you think they will do more harm than good? Join the conversation in the comments below.